Welcome back to another episode of Austin's Academy of Sports, where we have officially reached NFL WildCard Weekend. So many great games to get to dive into in this podcast. I only want to preview a few of them that intrigue me, but for the full NFL schedule after this podcast, make sure to tune in to ESPN, go on their website, go on their Instagram, go on their Facebook, wherever you get your sports feeds, and just look at the full schedule, look at how the two teams compare to each other, and most importantly, look at where they're seated and which teams are playing at home and on the road. But with all that being said, I'll detail, we'll go with 3 games, potentially 4 games that I want to talk about today. First, let's start with the first game. This Saturday, the Chargers at the Texans. 2 upstart teams that are going at it. Justin Herbert, 2 young quarterbacks, Justin Herbert and C.J. Stroud. Herbert this year passed for 3,870 yards and 23 touchdowns, only throwing 3 interceptions. That's a pretty good touchdown to interception ratio, especially for a young quarterback like that in the NFL. And if you think of his weapons, you got Quentin Johnston, you got the new guy from Georgia, Lad McConkey, that is really kind of proven to be that wide receiver 1 role for the Chargers. And then, of course, you got a new head coach in Jim Harbaugh. Wherever Harbaugh goes, success follows. I mean, if you follow Jim Harbaugh around, he's been in the NFL with the Niners, they were good. He's been in the college football with Michigan, and they were good. You know, they won a natty last year. And then this year, his first year with the Chargers, a 5 seed, top of the wild card, going to Houston to play, for a chance to go to the divisional round. And that's going to be a close game. But like I said, both young quarterbacks. Herbert has the 2 weapons, Lad McConkey and Quentin Johnston. And then he's got a pretty good offensive line. They just drafted Joe Alt on the left side of his offensive line to help in pass protection and run blocking. So, great team. And I saw an interesting stat today, actually. Most of their team is complemented by either an Ohio State player or a Michigan player, which is, ironic with the head honcho, Jim Harbaugh, coming from Michigan. And he's got some J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State. And then he's got different Ohio State players and different Michigan players as well. So it's kind of a one big happy family for the Chargers. And I think they get the job done this Saturday to start off Wildcard Weekend. C.J. Stroud, on the other hand, he's got 3,700 yards and 20 touchdowns and 12 interceptions in this 2024 regular season. Now, he kind of lost 2 of his top receivers in Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. Tank Dell, and then also Nico Collins was out during the season as well for a little bit. So he's kind of had different weapons to play around with. And the game's in Houston, which is an advantage for Houston. Obviously, any home team has the advantage, especially in a playoff game. But I think Herbert and the Chargers get the job done. Narrow scoring game, 31-28. Herbert and the Chargers advanced to the divisional round. And they knock off the AFC South Division winner in the Houston Texans. Next, we got the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Baltimore Ravens in the nightcap on Saturday night. This game is on Amazon Prime, so make sure you get those Amazon Prime subscriptions placed before Saturday night, of course, because this is a good game. You got the Ravens, who are led by they're a juggernaut team. I wouldn't be surprised if they're going to the Super Bowl this year. Them on the AFC side and the Buffalo Bills as well. But they're 12-5 and Pittsburgh's 10-7. Just because the Ravens are at home, I do see the Ravens getting the win. But actually, no, I think this game will be a blowout. The Steelers have lost coming into this game like 5 in a row, and they're trending downwards. Well, Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are trending upwards. 2 different teams at 2 different times. But I predict Ravens to get at least 30-plus points. They have a dynamic offense, dynamic 1-2 punch with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. Both could be potentially MVP winners this year, but I do give the nod to Lamar Jackson. Just his stats right here, 41, 72 yards, 41 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Now, some of those are running touchdowns, which he is a dual threat quarterback, but I still see Lamar Jackson taking home that MVP once this season is over with a close second behind Josh Allen. Or I should say, in front of Josh Allen. Now, ESPN is giving the Ravens a 72% chance to win. I think that could even climb to more. Zay Flowers is questionable. I do think Zay Flowers play. Once that postseason pressure wraps up and ramps up, both, anybody that's injured or not 100% is still going to play. This is like your last one-and-done scenario in the NFL for the playoffs. So I do think Zay Flowers plays. And the Ravens get the job done. 32 to, let's see, Steelers. Ravens defense is good, so I'd say Steelers get about 24 points. 32-24. Ravens win that game. Commanders Bucs, Sunday Night Football, primetime, NBC. That's going to be another great game. Jaden Daniels versus Baker Mayfield. Jaden Daniels and Terry McLaurin have been balling all season long from that one touchdown against the Cowboys, I believe it was, in Washington, where Jaden Daniels' last second heave tossed that ball about 40 yards. McLaurin caught it on the run, and a yard after catch, McLaurin, that X factor just came right in, and he just sprinted to the end zone and got that touchdown. Unfortunately, they were not able to win that game off a missed PAT, but it was still a great game. They've been balling all season. McLaurin here has 82 receptions, 1,096 yards, and 13 tuds this season. 13 of those tuds are 13 of 25 tuds for Jaden Daniels went to Terry McLaurin. So that 1-2 punch there. And then they have other pieces too in Austin Eckler and Brian Robinson, who came back from injury this year. A great team, great young team in the Commanders. And they probably could have won the East if it wasn't for the Eagles this year. But the Eagles got the East, and now the Commanders are the 6th seed, traveling to Tampa this Sunday night to play host to the Bucs. That's going to be a good game. I'm leaning 50-50 with this one. I do give the advantage to the Commanders, though. Well, actually, I do give the advantage. I'm going to switch that up to the Bucs. Mayfield, Mike Evans, they have tons of playoff experience. It's at home in Tampa. I just think Baker Mayfield gets the job done. He finds a different gear, a different mode to get the Bucs to a playoff win and hand them a wild card win, potentially even a divisional win. But honestly, it depends on who they match up in the divisional round. I don't see them getting past the divisional round. Because, who I'm going to mention next, the Lions and the Chiefs, they both get the 1 seed. 2 teams I didn't mention yet in this podcast. But Lions got the 1 seed after their commanding win over the Vikings last Sunday in prime time. They needed that 1 seed. They haven't had a bye since week 5. And now it is week 18. So they'll get a week off. They do have practice on Thursday. No pads, just, kind of a walkthrough. And then Campbell said in his presser that he's given the team, the coaches, the 3-day weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, to just, do whatever they want, rest up, because we are dealing with injuries, as everyone knows. Excuse me, the 12 defensive players on injured reserve or just injured right now for the Lions is not cutting it. They did get back Alex Anzalone, who kind of proclaimed he was only going to play in a limited amount of snaps in the game against the Vikings, but ended up playing the whole game after the snap counts came out. So that was kind of, satisfying to see that with his broken forearm that he suffered in Week 11. Lions do get the 1 seed. Chiefs, on the other hand, they stumble into the 1 seed. They lost. They rested their starters against the Broncos, and they still beat they lost the Broncos. But they were without Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. So they'll get the 1 seed in the AFC. But for my kind of Super Bowl predictions, Super Bowl matchups, and then conference championships. I do think in the NFC, the Lions and Eagles, the 1 and 2 seeds, get to the NFC Championship. That game is played at Ford Field. I see the Lions winning that one. It'll be a close game, though. Defense has to show up against Jalen Hurts, who is dealing with a concussion right now. And then Saquon Barkley, you know how a menace he is when he has the ball in his hands. Jumping over people backwards, hurdling people. I think the Lions get the job done there. No bias. And then on the AFC side, I think it's going to be Bills and Ravens. But I could see Bills and Chiefs. So I'm 50-50 with the AFC, but I do see the Lions representing the NFC in the Super Bowl. And then in the AFC, probably the Bills. Bills and Lions did play earlier on in the season. Bills got the win. I think the Lions, this is the Lions' year. Brad Holmes knew that coming in. They got some new pieces. They couldn't manage the defensive injuries, but they're still managing them pretty well with the absence of all those key players. I think the Lions win the Super Bowl this year. Come back to this podcast, flag this podcast, when the playoffs start this weekend, and they continue out through Super Bowl weekend, which is February 9th. That's going to do it for this podcast. For the full NFL playoff schedule, check out ESPN or wherever you get your social media posts for NFL content. As always, thanks for tuning in. I'm Austin Shattuck, and I'll see you next time on Austin's Academy of Sports. Stay safe.